we're seeing a move now in a lot of organisations about just be yourself, because actually that gets the best out of people. So I know myself is a bit wacky, a bit hyper, a bit crazy, right? I've just accepted it, and I think that's one of the best things that a leader can do, is accept who you are and be excited about what you do.
Yeah, the reason why I feel that resonates is because that held me back for a long time. Not accepting that I'm not like other people. I don't do things the way that other people do it. What's your name and what do you do?
My name is Tim Hurd, and I am the head of Intrapreneurship at Barclays Ventures and the co-founder of the Circle of Intrapreneurs.
So there was 2 programs really that I kind of did to make me an intrapreneur, and since then, you know, I'm all about like social change. I'm all about you know, mainly spreading the word about how, not knowing that if you're an entrepreneur, what do you do, how to get off the ground. You know, that encouraged me to kind of think about books, what can I write about it. I bought the Gig Bullet.
Oh yeah.
So I'm reading that at the moment. It's just, there's so much potential that it's, sometimes I'm not sure where the market is right now to really understand the value of it. So I'm still trying to learn more, YouTube more, trying to understand what is the sentiment in the market right now for this subject, entrepreneurship, or do we need to reframe the whole entrepreneurship to something else that businesses can catch on a bit more quicker? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think whether it's the right word is up for debate. I mean, I find it quite hard to say sometimes, entrepreneurship, even though it isn't my job title. But I mean, what you just articulated is literally why I set up the Circle of Intrapreneurs, right? Is this idea that there is such potential in entrepreneurship, right? In this idea that there are smart, passionate, talented individuals inside the world's biggest companies that I think with the millennial generation are kind of are likely to be socially conscious, or at least aware of social problems because of social media and all that sort of jazz, right? And therefore probably sitting there at their desks like I was, thinking, what the hell am I doing, right? What I'm doing is working for someone else, and here's social problems out which I'm doing nothing about. But what social entrepreneurship does is it allows you to convert that into a genesis moment when you say, wait, I'm working for one of the world's biggest companies. We have resources, you know, all over the place. We have infrastructure, we have expertise, right? All of which can be accessed for free, rather than if you're an entrepreneur and you pay for it. And that's quite interesting, because when you get to that mindset and you see the company as something that can deliver what you care about rather than just you delivering what they care about, it becomes really empowering. Whether it's empowering later on in the journey when you actually get going is a different story, but I think actually the paradigm of entrepreneurship is there's so much potential in that, because if you can take people's excitement and inspiration and channel that through corporate scale, then that's how you solve the world's most intractable social problems, because, you know, governments aren't really solving them because they don't have the resources. The charity sector and everything, you know, has a place, but when it comes to the really big things, they probably don't have the scale to solve them. Now, the corporate sector has the scale to solve them, but in some cases can be the source of the problem in the first place, right? And therefore, if you do it effectively, you can take away, it's a supply and demand thing in a way, you take away the supply of some social problems, climate change for example, and then also increase the ability for carbon capture if it's climate change, right? So actually you have this power to do left-hand, right-hand stuff just as one person inside a company. All you need to do is kind of have the light switched on of social entrepreneurship and train on how to deliver.
So what got you famous for entrepreneurship at Barclays, or Circle of Intrapreneurship?
It's a blend of things, isn't it? When I get confused, my mum doesn't know what I do. I don't know what I do most of the time. I wouldn't say that. I suppose the question there is how did I make my passion my day job in a way? What got me recognised for entrepreneurship to the point where it became my job as the head of entrepreneurship? And it's quite interesting. I guess it started with me being an entrepreneur and not realising it. So I'd never heard the term, right? And I started delivering all of these things when I was fresh off the graduate scheme, side of desk, more because I think at that point in time you're trying to take on as much as possible to network, prove you can do it, build skills, you know, super keen, I was super high energy at that point.
Yeah.
So I just started taking on all these extra things that weren't my job, weren't even related to my department, but just started doing them because it was like, wow, this seems like something that I can do, it's something exciting.
When you first joined Barclays?
It was about 2 years in, I just started to craft new things and pick up loads and loads of side of desk initiatives. I then had the opportunity to formally become a social entrepreneur, in that there was this little article on our intranet that said, oh hey, are you Barclays' next social entrepreneur? And I said to the guy next to me, I was like,
hey,
Adrian, you know what? So I watched him, I was like, I might be Barclays' next social intrapreneur, and he was like, what the hell's that? I don't know. Anyway, I applied. And then had a period of time through our social entrepreneurship program working as an entrepreneur. And by virtue of doing that, you do have to, as part of the role of being an entrepreneur, network all over the organisation to try and get your product signed off. That, I wouldn't say, it didn't go badly, but it was extremely difficult, right? We managed to deliver an MVP, but it took kind of 4 years. And I think...
What's an MVP for those who don't know?
Minimum viable product.
Good.
And I think what made me famous internally, and to an extent externally, was actually that I said, hey, this was really difficult, but we were working on something that could deliver literally £80 million a year for charity, was what we projected. Why should that be so difficult? If you're creating social impact, you know, companies want to prove that they're good citizens now.
Yeah.
People inside the company want to work for companies that do that. There's a big business case for it. Why is it still so hard to be a social entrepreneur? And that's why I launched the circle of young entrepreneurs, as it was at the time. Basically saying, let's take all the mistakes that I made in my 4-year journey and offer them up to other people to say, don't do these things and you might be able to deliver.
Yeah.
And the good news, I think, with that, Oliver, is that actually that went viral, right? It started as this LinkedIn group.
Yeah.
And then just grew into this, as it is now, sort of 9,000 person network, which is active in something like 102, 103 countries around the world, which at 3 years old is quite cool considering we're all part-time and whatever. And I think eventually, just by sheer volume of stuff that was being posted on my LinkedIn, being talked about internally, the volume of content that was being shared about entrepreneurship with my name tagged to it, I think eventually people got either pestered or bugged enough at Barclays that they kind of thought there was something in it. And that was, I guess, how I, by accident, became known for it internally.
Okay, so how did you create the circle of entrepreneurship? So what was the structure like? How did it grow? Can you just talk a bit more in detail on what do they do?
So Circle of Intrapreneurs, originally set up, I said, as a LinkedIn group, which was kind of just to create and share best practice around being a social entrepreneur, and also for people who were thinking this way inside corporates to realise that actually they're not alone. Because it can be quite lonely being a social entrepreneur. Sometimes you think you're kind of, you're isolated, you're on your own, you're a bit weird because you're the only person thinking that way.
Yeah.
If you know that maybe you're weird, but so are a couple of hundred other people on this LinkedIn group, then that can be quite comforting. We set up as the LinkedIn group, which was cool, and then that started to tick over pretty quickly, and we thought, well, there's obviously some demand for this, particularly amongst people of a sort of same age as me and my co-founder, right? The millennial generation. Hate the term, but we'll use it. Maybe just something more than just a LinkedIn group in this. Maybe we should try and find a way to make this into something more substantial, which was then how we started to craft it into more of a movement. And by that I mean we started hosting, regular events in first London, and then realised that because our demand was global, what we should do was launch chapters in other parts of the world.
Right.
So we launched chapters like Singapore, New York, Sydney, Johannesburg, Dubai, where we train people to run not only events, but also to host kind of smaller sessions, sort of hackathons, to develop new profitable solutions to social problems, train entrepreneurs on how to deliver them, and more to the point, I suppose, just advocate for social entrepreneurship as a way of doing business. That then obviously, because we have this growth rate globally, led to recognition from the likes of the UN, One Young World, a bunch of other conferences and big kind of organisations saying, actually, we think there's something in this. And then obviously the corporate organisations themselves started to take interest because they said, we've got like 60 members from this network, what is it that you guys do? What are you doing with our employees? And actually, once they found out a bit more, became quite excited about it. So now we describe ourselves as we've morphed from a movement more into a sort of project incubator. So by that I mean what we want to do is own an end-to-end entrepreneurship journey from people are sitting at their desks, not having, kind of enjoying their job but finding they don't have any meaning, but feel they don't want to quit their jobs but would still like to change the world. Yeah. And we say, at that point, hopefully they'll Google something that will lead them to our website, right? If they go to circleintrapreneurs.com, they will then be inspired. They'll say, this is the answer, right? Which has happened to me at quite a lot of events I've spoken at. People grab me at the end and say, this is the light bulb. This is what I've been looking for. This is the answer to all my kind of career-related problems, which is cool. I mean, it might be a bit over the top, but it's cool because actually seeing the light bulb come on is nice. I mean, it's better than booing me. So, and the idea is they then get inspired to create their own idea. They think about social problems they're passionate about and think about what can my corporate do to solve that? What can my company do? It doesn't have to be a big corporate. Then they start using our tools and techniques to craft ideas, and then hopefully using the tips and tools of our network and talking to our community, they can then deliver them, right? So that's what we want to try and do, become something that helps people to create, develop, and deliver profitable solutions to social problems. Yeah.
All right, okay, let me just read this. All right. Gareth Williams from M&S, he thought of an idea called Skyscanner, and he pitched it to M&S, and they probably said no, and then he went off and did it. Now it's evaluated £1.4 billion. Will Shrew, Morgan Stanley, thought of an idea called Deliveroo, but pitched it, probably didn't get no luck. Now it's valued $3 billion when he left. And Nick Storonsky, Credit Suisse, and he thought of an idea called Revolut, pitched it, probably didn't get much success, and now it's worth 1.4 billion. So these are just kind of like high-profile projects that entrepreneurs had, but they couldn't fulfill it in their companies. So what advice would you give people who have ideas, great ideas like those, and who are having trouble trying to sell it to the business? Do you think it's a good idea to start their own business? I know it depends on the project, depends on the product, the service, but general advice, or do you think they should kind of continue working at it, getting some business sponsorship? What's your general feelings around how long you should keep an idea within the company?
It's a good question. I think with the guys that you've mentioned, I think some of them probably undoubtedly spoke to their employers about their idea. I think a lot of people in that situation probably wouldn't, because they would think this isn't something that relates to the business model and therefore don't even think about it. I think that's a shame, because I think that's a failing on the corporate's part, because actually I think the company should think bigger. Just because something isn't aligned to your kind of, this is our box, that is our operating model, therefore we'll only do things in here. We're in a world now where there's so much disruption, there's so much change, there's so much dynamism, that you want to think outside that box, right? So if someone comes to you and you're a bank and they say, let's create a way of distributing fast food, right, using bicycles. If you think there's something in it, you should absolutely invest in it, right? So it's more about, and to answer your question, it's more about taking your idea and articulating the what's in it for me, for the company you're in. That could be well, these are the projections, right, in terms of business case, revenue, or whatever. It might be quite hard, and it usually is for entrepreneurs at that point, because they don't have the money to do the market research or build a prototype and really do it. So you kind of have to second guess yourself a little bit. Generally, when companies are making an investment decision for entrepreneurs, though, it doesn't have to be as high a benchmark as for entrepreneurs. A, because they know the person and they kind of know their acumen. And B, what you can sort of do is just follow what I call a logic trail, which is basically saying, right, if X percentage of people signed up to this product, which, here are similar products in the market that have shown that kind of percentage take-up rate, and then this led to, X percent profit per person, which, there's historical precedent of this. This would lead to profit of this amount per year, right? generally that's okay. You can actually Google a business case quite effectively just by finding those sorts of stats and putting them together. Generally that's enough to get an investment of a small amount as an entrepreneur, right? Because you need to take your audience to a journey when you're pitching to them, and if they can understand the journey and the thought process that you've gone through and the assumptions in it, and it makes sense, then actually that's okay. It doesn't have to be war and peace. I think what a lot of people fall down on is they think that they need to they won't talk about their ideas until they're fully researched and fully ready. That's a bad approach. What you should start doing is from very early stage start talking to people, because what that does is it gets people to buy in. So if your line manager, for example, buys in earlier on in the journey, that becomes so helpful later on, right? Rather than you suddenly saying, hey, I need to take Friday off to go and pitch to an MD in London. And they're like, pitch what? What are you doing? Where have you been? What are you working on? Why are you doing what I'm telling you? You know, if they buy in early on, it's really important. It also means you get feedback, right? And it's back to this point around working for a company, if you think about it in the right way, it's loads of free expertise that you don't have to pay for. If you're talking to compliance, risk, legal, they will point out things that don't work with your idea, but that's great because then you can shape it, right? So definitely talk to people and talk to people early. I think if you have a really big business idea, then the other thing to think about is what is it that you want? What is your exit strategy, right? Are you wanting to make this a full-time job? Cool, that's fine. What are your finances and personal finances like at that point in time? Is this something that you think you can do alone, right? In terms of both a financial point of view and an infrastructure point of view. If it is, that's probably the preference, right? Because, you know, why would you give away some of your equity if you think you can do it alone? However, I think most people are working for corporates because or just in companies, because they don't want the pain of the first kind of 3 months of basically living in their mom's basement of ramen noodles, right? But you start out as a traditional entrepreneur. So actually what you kind of want to do is to talk to the company in a way that they can smooth that transition, which is an intrapreneurship model, which is, okay, let's try and, you're probably going to give away a bit of equity in return for some investment, right? Or you find a way to get housed in an accelerator program. Generally, most big corporates now have them, right? And actually a lot of them are starting to look at internal teams, right? You can get 3 months where you get seconded into that, that's fine. But the bottom line is you need to kind of know what it is you want and what it is you're asking for early on in the journey, because then that governs the rest of the adventure and the rest of the approach, right? And I think a lot of people haven't figured that out, right?
So are you saying that are you saying that entrepreneurs should be intrapreneurs first?
I think what's interesting about being in a corporate for a while before you become an entrepreneur is that actually you can develop skills on someone else's pay packet in a way. So you don't have to sit there and learn on the ground, which is exciting, but you know, it's learning and developing whilst you're in your own basement. It's a bit difficult, right? And you've got to work out and worry about when the next pay comes. If you can do 6 or 7 years working for a company that will train you on all that sort of stuff, you know, building business cases, how to pitch, how to sell, you know, even to the basis level of how to interact with other people in a professional way, right? If you can learn all of that, then that means that when you get to being an entrepreneur, it's much more likely to succeed. Now, if you can have an intrapreneurship phase into that, it's even better, because then you develop pure entrepreneurship skills. So, how to put a pitch deck, how to pitch, how to put a business case, how to do market research, how to develop and launch a product, all that sort of stuff you can develop again whilst you're on the paybook, right? So you don't have that risk, and I think that's a really neat way of looking at it. Now, moving from an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur is technically called extrapreneurship. They've got preneurship for everything, and I think that's something that is interesting because I don't think that is common enough. I think that should become a fairly standard way of managing talent. And one of the things I'm trying to do through my role at Barclays now is to work with my clients to look at that as an option, a sort of spin-out model. That should be the exception, right? It shouldn't be like anyone that comes up with a business idea can spin out and get their own company, right? But it should be, you know, 1 or 2 a year, the best ideas that we really believe in, we will set up as their own enterprise and we'll take equity. Because then your talent management pipeline becomes, well, if you come up with a business solution that we really care about and you're nailing your day job as well, then we will set you up as an entrepreneur and give you investment so you avoid the ramen time, right? The basement time.
Yeah.
And that's a cool message for people of our generation, certainly. I think if a company had that as their talent management policy, they would clean up the talent in the sector, because everyone would go and work for them.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
So what are the common challenges for an entrepreneur? It's not all plain sailing of happy days working in a corporate organisation or any organisation, and you can make mistakes and you don't need to worry about your job. No, we both know that. So there's some tension between yourself and the goals of the company. There's managers, there's directors, there's colleagues, your colleagues who are at your peer, who might be jealous or might not understand what you're doing. There's client demands. There's so many different factors that can cause challenges. So what do you think are the challenges, and how would you go around solving the challenges or dealing with those challenges for an entrepreneur?
I think you've highlighted one of the key ones, which is time, right? You're almost invariably going to be doing this on top of your day job for a large part of the journey. Now, that just comes down to management of time effectively. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs start doing evenings and weekends. It's not necessarily necessary, because I think workload tends to go in ups and downs anyway, and therefore you can use your dips to do your entrepreneurship stuff. To do that, you do need to be articulating up your management line, and as I said earlier, bringing them in early, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it and what the benefit is to the organisation and to the team, okay? So that they're happy for you to do that, they're massive ally if you have them on side. You also shouldn't ever do it alone. I always say that sole entrepreneurs are going to find it extremely difficult. If you have a team of 5, which is generally what I recommend, and you'll probably lose 1 or 2 on the way, a team of 5, then you can throw stuff between you, depending on who's busy and who isn't. You sort of spread your bets a little bit, and that's quite useful. I think the other thing that entrepreneurs find quite difficult is how are you actually going to deliver the thing, right? What is it that needs to happen? Generally, it's the first step in a lot of organisations is to receive funding through some kind of innovation program or grant or whatever. That's not necessarily the end of the journey, okay? Because actually, a lot of organisations seem to conflate funding with delivery, which is bizarre, because having been a project manager myself, when your project is funded, that's when you start work on it, right? Whereas in entrepreneurship, it seems to be the other way around. So you get some funding, it's going to be really hard to actually get the resources to deliver. Where you get people say, oh, you want access to my developers? Well, they're all assigned for the next 2 years. So you're kind of like, oh, this sucks. I literally had this problem repeatedly. So actually, what resources do you need to deliver, and how are you going to deliver it to market? And most of the answer to that one relies on what I call entrepreneurship magic tricks, okay? Which is that, and not virtually no one in this space trains people on this, which is weird, because it is all about soft skills, right? You can have the greatest product in the world, but you're not going to be able to deliver it unless you can sell it effectively. And not just sell it effectively, but build a network of what I call cheerleaders, who are senior people that can't actually get too involved in the delivery either because it's not their department or politically they can't, but are there kind of flying the flag for you, right? They've got their pom-poms out and helping you out. And you want to build that really strategically, and you want to basically sit down and say, who do I need to influence and why to get myself into a formal delivery channel? And then we've worked out who these people are. You work out an individual strategy for each individual person, and that can be, there's some research out there about how you adapt your pitching technique, which is important. Sometimes you should use effusive language, sometimes you should use much more to the point, basic language. Sometimes you should really focus on social value, sometimes you should focus on customer value, sometimes on business value, right? Understanding what the kind of person you're pitching to, what kind of person they are, is super important when you then judge that. Sometimes it's also then worth looking at the people that influence them, right? And that's the hardest part of the entrepreneurship journey. People just literally will just go in on product development, right, and feedback. That's important, but you need to, from very early on, strategically work out who you need to influence, how you need to influence them, when you're going to influence them, and what you're going to ask them for, right? And then try and plug that into a delivery plan.
So how would you define your leadership style?
Well, I guess through the circle of entrepreneurs, I run a team of close to 120 people now, which grew organically. And so I get feedback quite often on my leadership style. So it's kind of high energy, told and reasonably inspirational, a bit wacky at times, quite eccentric I think. So it's kind of that, but very very passionate, very passionate. So it's kind of passionate, a bit wacky, high energy, organised chaos to an extent, but really good at like bringing people along the journey, selling them the vision and getting them excited about it. So I think that is kind of inspirational, but at times a bit disorganised.
and is two questions on that. Is that something you were aware of? So you were requesting feedback to understand that intentionally, or was it you just heard that because that's what people were saying about you?
That's what people say about me. It wasn't an intentional stylistic choice. But I don't think when it comes to leadership it should be. I think the most powerful leaders are the authentic leaders that don't look at someone else and think they're a good leader, I'm going to copy them. You think, what is my best me in terms of getting stuff done and exciting people to get stuff done. For me, I think the vision of the circle is something that people buy into because it's really cool. Wouldn't it be great if the world's biggest companies became the world's biggest social enterprises and we raised millions of people out of poverty? That's cool. I guess that I've always been quite enthusiastic, right? It's always been the way that I've been. I know that at points, I think, having joined quite a corporate organisation, they do try and put you in a box at points, right? Inadvertently, where you have these development points that actually cause you to sometimes lose parts of your personality, I think. And over time, and I bought into that for a while, and somebody thought, well, that's not me. I'm not going to be becoming someone that's me, and that's causing me stress. We're seeing a move now in a lot of organisations about just be yourself, because actually that gets the best out of people. So I know myself is a bit wacky, a bit hyper, a bit crazy, right? I've just accepted it, and I think that's one of the best things that a leader can do is accept who you are and be excited about what you do. The
reason why I feel that resonates is because that held me back for a long time, not accepting that I'm not like other people, I don't do things the way that other people do it. And it's only until I kind of self-accepted, okay, this is what I'm good at, and even getting to that point of understanding what I'm good at also took a while, because I wasn't aware of what people were telling me I was good at. Sometimes I either didn't acknowledge it, didn't believe it, or didn't take time to harness it. So for you, did you start learning that you're good at being inspirational, you're good at being a bit wacky and a bit organised chaos? Did you start using that to your advantage, or is it just like, how do you use those traits to make you a better leader? If you see what I'm saying?
That's a good question. I think I've always had the ability to organise and mobilise groups of people throughout pretty much my entire life. That's one of the things that I've always been good at. I didn't realise that was, because I think you have these sort of skills outside of work, and you kind of know them there because you kind of know what kind of group or role you fit in with your mates and stuff like that. I think what takes a while is to rationalise that some of those behaviours are actually business acumen as well. They're things that can be powerful in trying to achieve other things. If you're regularly the group organising for your mates to go to the pub, right, and then people will come, and actually that's the skill to organise people and get them towards a solid shared objective. Those things translate into the corporate sector, right? You just need to add a bit of a professional spin on it with the way you articulate it. So I think actually for me it was more realising the stuff that I was already good at outside of work and seeing that was relevant inside of work. Become a scientist for your own life.
Exactly. I always say become a documentarian. So I've noticed that the people I've been on the podcast so far who have been senior leaders and junior leaders and who have inspirations of being leaders, they all are very highly self-aware. So do you have books that you can recommend some of the audiences, to people listening, that could help them become more self-aware? Or if you don't have books, is there websites? How do you train yourself to not just focus very narrowly on just entrepreneurship and the things that you want to do, but also keep growing yourself and becoming a better person?
I'm going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works here, because my opinion on this is not to read any books. Don't read any self-help books. Don't read any of those things. Because what you do if you read too many of those books about like, you know, how to be inspirational, how to do this, is you just end up overthinking it, I found. Because I did that for a while, I read a load of these things, and you're sort of sitting there going, oh, I need to be standing like this, I need to be talking like this, I need to be doing that, and then you lose sight of who you are, and you start to overthink it, and you actually get kind of anxious about things you never used to be anxious about, because you're suddenly over-processing them, overthinking them. I think it's a personal exercise. I think you sit down and you think, what am I good at? What do I know I'm good at? What do I like doing, right? What am I passionate about? And you kind of try and combine those together, because if you can find yourself into something, if you find what your passion is, then the rest tends to follow, because people will follow passionate people, okay? So I don't think you need to read any books on self-awareness. I think it's just about self-reflection. Sit there and think about it. You're your own, like a book doesn't know you, right? So you know you better than you, so just sit and think about it, right? You don't need someone else to tell you.
So I like where you're going. So you're saying self-reflection is better than reading books, and what does that mean practically? Is that having a diary to document the things that goes on in your life, or is it about doing a podcast that you can listen back to the things and the challenges and the topics that you've spoken about with your guests? What are the things that allow you to become more reflective, and then how do you turn that reflection into you yourself? Because you can reflect, I can write things down, but it's still on paper. Like, how do I then make it reality? Like, you know, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Two things, I think. One, be a chameleon. Two, be a fish. So what I mean by that is chameleon.
Okay, before you start.
Yeah. So be a chameleon and be a fish. Chameleon, because look at what other people do in terms of the behaviours they express.
Yeah.
And see, and in terms of the behaviours that are effective and are good and people respond positively to, right? And think about, is that something that I can incorporate into my personal brand? Not from a point of view of doing stuff that isn't natural to you, but just looking at it and saying, are these things that, you know, does this match with me? Can I do that? Can I copy that? Mimic it? Secondly, be a fish. So, shower time. That's my time for thinking when I'm in the shower.
Same.
I sit there and I think but that's when I self-reflect. I'm like, in the morning, I'm like, what went wrong yesterday? What did I do well? What did I do less well? And therefore, what can I learn? And I just do it every day and just think about it. Sometimes I do a bit of meditation and stuff like that, but that's more to kind of clear my mind rather than reflect too much. Because you don't actually, whilst I say it's important to be self-reflective, you don't want to do it too much, because then you just spend your whole time in your head, and actually there's a big world out there, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to get trapped inside your own mind. So I think it's important to have a period of time every day, but not too much. And then just try and be positive. Like, that's the one thing that I fall backwards and forwards with this in life, right, depending on what's happening. So I don't always listen to my own advice. Great at giving it, terrible at listening to it.
So is everyone.
But the one thing I've seen, even when you read all these books, right, the one thing that comes out is just to be positive, right? Just get yourself into a mental state where you're like, I'm not competing with other people in general. Like, I'm here, I'm positive, I'm going to listen to people, I'm going to engage with this, I'm going to try and have fun with it, right? You're meeting, because then if you're doing that, you're meeting people and you're smiling, you're just excited to see them, and just have that natural curiosity and excitement for life, which actually in some senses the corporate sector tries to.
What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
What advice would I give my 21-year-old self?
Yeah.
I was like, don't do things the way I've done them. Yeah, it's been a long, hard slug. One thing I did well that I tell myself to definitely continue doing was to nurture some positive relationships at that point in time, and build a network of mentors. Not just one, but multiple, because people have different perspectives and are useful in different situations. And keep those, and just keep those connections going. Right, that was something that I did really well. On the other hand, one thing that I probably should have done better, so I would advise to my 21-year-old self now, is it's not all about work, right? It's not all about achieving things. You think certainly through your 20s, you're just like, I have to achieve all the time, like, get on this ladder, do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it is to an extent, but not to the extent where you become a victim of that. You know, you kind of mental breakdown or whatever. You've got to look after your mental health. That's something I could definitely have done better, is look after that, not try and take on too much. You're only one person at the end of the day. So if I'd been more conscious of that at the time, then and also that things will come. I think the reason that people try and squash things and try and achieve too much and burn themselves out is because they try to do it too quickly. It's fine to take your time over some things, because things do take time. That's okay. You know, we're probably going to be here in theory for healthy and well until we're 100, right? You've got a lot of time to do stuff with. So whilst work and having a passion on stuff is important, I think it's equally important to look at the people that matter in your life and making sure that you still spend time with them, and also that you look after yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim, for joining Not Yet Late podcast.
Thank you, happy to be here.
Cheers.